Today's video is going to be about a refresher on some of the content I covered at my weekly Facebook Live session this week on our Cloud 360 accounting page. And the two areas I was talking about during the session, just to make everyone aware of certain things, was what are the current government support measures that are still in place, UK-wide, but also very specific to Northern Ireland. And also I wanted to talk about HMRC and any particular HMRC debts and liabilities that you have accrued at the moment and are sitting there that have to be dealt with or paid, or any sort of future things that are going to happen as well, and how you can deal with those proactively to get a good result, and they allow you to sort of move forward, maybe take away some of your stresses and strains and your worries. And again, we're here to help all of our clients through that type of stuff. So starting first of all with the current government support measures, I've got some of them listed down here just in front of me, and I'll run through them now. So in terms of the current support measures that are UK-wide, we have the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, which is running now up to the end of April, and that is going to be covering the 80% of people's wages up to the cap of £2,500 a month. And there is now a deadline every month to get your claim in. So for example, we have a deadline of the 14th of January for the December claims, and it'll continue like that going forward. So if you're doing your own claims, or if your accountant's doing your claims, just make sure you're both aware of the deadline and get them done on time. We also have COVID SSP covering the first 2 weeks of statutory sick pay under certain eligibility criteria, which I think is if people are off due to coronavirus. Then we also have, in terms of UK-wide, the Self-Employed Income Support Scheme, which is now continuing into this year for a third and fourth payout. And the third payout covers the November to January period. And again, it's 80% of average earnings, trading profits for a number of months. And there's going to be a fourth one covering February to April. Haven't confirmed if it's going to be 80% exactly yet, but I would like to think it is. I can't see them dropping that level of support for any particular reason. I know they'd considered it and then they upped it again, so I would imagine that the government are going to continue that at 80%. So just make sure if you're eligible for that scheme and you have filed your 2018-19 tax return as part of the eligibility criteria, follow the process you've done before to get your first two payouts and get yourself in for the third and fourth payouts as well. In particular to Northern Ireland now, there are a lot of things in relation to Northern Ireland that are general sort of stuff that people may not be aware of, but I'll also talk about some specific schemes. So general stuff is there is apprenticeships support schemes, believe it or not. So if you have apprentices and you had to furlough the apprentices, bringing them back and retaining them, and there's certain criteria for all of that, will entitle your business to a grant of £3,700. There's a new apprentices grant scheme up to £3,000 for bringing on new apprentices. If your business is in a position to do that, then that might be worth looking at. There is a charities fund, so if your charity has suffered due to a lack of or a drop in your income and resources, so a drop in your money coming in as a result of the pandemic, there is a grant funding of up to £75,000, I have noted here, available. There's things like energy efficiency grants to cover 20% of the cost of making your business more energy efficient in order to come back more efficiently from your sort of lockdown periods, up to £80,000 if you're in a particular sector that might be applicable to you. And there's also, I think I've made a wee note in the back here, the wet pubs grant scheme as well, available in Northern Ireland for wet pubs who are obviously closed due to the lockdown restrictions. So those are some of the general stuff specific to Northern Ireland, and most people are aware of these, but I just wanted to touch on them again. Specific to Northern Ireland, well, we've got the ongoing rates relief. I think that's actually UK-wide, which is retail, hospitality, tourism and leisure and childcare facilities have a rate-free period up to the end of March. We'll be interested to see what happens after that point in time. Bounce back loans and CBILS loans are continuing to run to the end of March. So if you've in the early part of the pandemic, I think probably around April, May time when these schemes were first launched, people were taking these loans, but sometimes not taking them all. So you can actually now top up your bounce back loan or your CBILS loan up to the end of March if you feel the need to. Some people and businesses that I know are doing that, and again, setting the money aside and maybe retaining it there for 12 months. I know I've spoken to one client who's actually going to take some money and just reinvest it and then be able to repay it in 12 months' time, but earn some money off it while they have no interest. They have no interest to pay for 12 months, no repayments for 12 months. So the client's going to go ahead and do that. But look, that's open to the end of March. If you want to point in the right direction for that, then just come to us and we'll do that for you. We also have the UK-wide stuff as well. Of course, includes the VAT deferral scheme and the self-assessment deferral scheme. So if you deferred VAT back between March and May last year at the start of the pandemic, initially you were expected to pay that by March this year. Things are not going to be too sort of on an upward trend in the economy now for a while, I would imagine. And HMRC have actually said, look, if you want to defer that money again, then what you can do is put it onto 11 months direct debits. Self-assessment's another one. By the end of January, if you haven't already got your self-assessment tax return done for 2019-20, make sure it's done ASAP, because you should be contacting HMRC if you have tax debt up to 30 grand. They will put you onto a 12-month direct debit to repay that as well. And bear in mind, for some people under self-assessment, they didn't pay a second payment on account in July. So the amount they have to pay in January is definitely going to be higher anyway. And for some clients we've spoken to, certainly over the last couple of months, they've been receiving certain grants before the end of March, like the 10 grand business support grant. And there's tax and national insurance to pay on that grant. So their tax bill is higher because there's less payments on account, and higher because they have this grant in their accounts before the end of March 2020. So look, key message is get this done quickly and get on to the government to get your repayments over a 12-month interest-free period. So do that as soon as you can. Last couple of things for Northern Ireland is the localised restriction support scheme, which is if you've got property, depending on your rateable value, then you will be entitled to certain levels of grants. That scheme's still open, and for most people now, they're jumping into the coronavirus restrictions business support schemes Part A or Part B. So Part A is if your business has had to close but you don't have premises, then you can apply. That scheme only runs now to the 5th of February, so if you're not in there already, get in there to get your money. And then Part B is also running to the 5th of February. Part B is if you are in the supply chain of a business which has been forced to close. So if you're a supplier to a restaurant or to restaurants and cafes, then you should be able to apply for that particular grant support. So that covers all of the grant support stuff. Touching back onto the HMRC support measures that I'm talking about here, and if you are in debt at the moment with HMRC, it's not a great position to be in. We would rather not be in debt to HMRC. Some of that debt for clients I've seen is historic. They've had a couple of missed payments here and there, and it's not really the pandemic has caused that. This is just something that they've come into the pandemic with. But no matter what your position is, folks, if you've come in with a missed VAT return, or your self-assessment is a little bit behind, or you haven't paid all your corporation tax or your PAYE, now is actually not a bad time to be going to HMRC and saying to them, look, yes, I've had these arrears, but the pandemic has drastically affected my ability to get all of this repaid sooner rather than later, and strike a deal with them. They do have a specialised coronavirus time to pay support telephone number to ring, and that will be the one I would advise people to go for. I think you'll get you have more chance of getting a deal out of them by ringing that particular line, and you might get a better type of deal by ringing that line than ringing some of the other normal debt management lines with HMRC. But if you're struggling with any of this at all, please give us a shout. We'd be more than happy to help. Hope that's been useful, folks, and any questions, as always, come back to us and let us know. Thanks very much now.